The album is called The Compass, and I didn't know what it would be called at first, but I went back to why there is even an album anyway. So I moved to the East Coast from the Midwest. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends. All I did was go to work and come back home. And when I was at home, I really dove into prayer like intensely. And one night in prayer, I had a vision of me being like in the woods or the forest or some sort of like greenery type of in the wilderness type of situation. And the Lord showed me people hiding in ditches and hiding behind trees and like covering themselves, like hiding in the bushes. And he said, these are the lost ones. And these lost ones are the people who have been kicked out of churches and that they have been considered the black sheep of their family and they don't have a place to run to. I need you to pray for them because I'm ushering in a season where they'll come back home to me, but they need to know that they're welcome. And so for a year straight, I would always just pray for the lost ones whenever I would get home from work, and I would pray for myself and I would pray for my family, and then I would pray for the lost ones. The lost ones became my burden in the place of prayer. And earlier this year, 2020, I heard God say, let's do an album. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I've never heard of a prayer album. Like, are people gonna listen? Can this be a thing? And I found a producer, but I procrastinated for maybe like 3 months. I never made an appointment to go and meet with him. But then finally I'm like, no, let's do this thing. And the first scheduled appointment for me to go and record, I kind of like psych myself out. I'm like, I don't know if I'm good enough. Like, what if this sounds crazy? And then I get there and he's like, well, I've never done anything like this before, but let's just do it. And I'm like, before we start, can we just like worship together before we get going? Because we don't know each other. So let's just get a feel for each other in the place of worship. Like, what better sense of vulnerability to be with somebody in the place of prayer? Like, I just feel like that's so intimate. And so he and I prayed, and you know, I'm used to me praying. So when I was finished, I'm just like, okay, amen, let's go. And he was like, I didn't know you were gonna come in here and just do that. Like, I need a moment to gather myself. And oh my gosh, it's so crazy. The first day, his system broke down. Like, after I prayed and I'm like, I'm ready. He had to switch his whole computer setup. Like, that's crazy, actually. But week after week, it just became easy. And like, when I started this thing, I just imagined that like women ages 18 to 25 that look like me would buy it and in some way connect, because you know, I'm a woman. I'm 18 through 25. And I just figured that would be my audience, and it amazed me every single time when the producer, who was a man, who wasn't 18 through 25, who isn't someone who I hang out with or associate with on a regular basis, connected with it. And you know, I would come back and he would give me feedback from the previous week, and he's just like, you know, this is powerful. Like, I really believe it's going to be impactful. And I think it just changed my mind about what it means to walk in purpose, because we put limits on ourselves, but there is no boundary when you do what God has called for you to do. Like, we limit our scope of impact by who we think will accept us, but the call of God isn't for those who will accept us because they like the way that we do our hair or how we put together outfits. The scope of God doesn't even really weigh those things. Like, God cares about what is inside of us. He cares about the salvation of our soul, and he depends on us to walk in purpose so that we can attract those who are lost. Whether or not you have a burden for the lost ones, the Lord, his goal is to redeem and reconcile every severed relationship that we may find ourselves in the welcoming of his presence.